Hey guys, this time on Movie Reviews, we're going to be looking at the brand new film, The Goldfinch. The Goldfinch was directed by John Crowley and stars Ansel, Elgort, Nicole Kidman, and Jeffery Wright, and is based off of the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel by Donna Tartt, following the story of Theo, an antique salesman who is on the run in Amsterdam from the police and is lying low in a hotel room. The story follows Theo through a series of flashbacks that fill in the gaps that led to this moment of him being chased by the police, and we see how he came to this moment in his life. And one of those moments involves him as a 13-year-old at the Metropolitan Art Museum in New York during a bombing that destroys the entire building and kills many people, including his mother. And throughout the ashes, he finds the remains of the famous Goldfinch painting. He takes it into his possession, basically stealing it, and keeps it the rest of his life. And the rest of the film really follows him through a series of vignettes as he moves from place to place, really learning about life and meeting interesting new characters. Guys, this was a film that I was really anticipating. I absolutely loved the trailers for this film, and reading up about the book online and learning about the author itself, it really made me excited for this film. This is a story that I found really intriguing and really interesting, and it was one of my most anticipated films of the fall season. And after watching it, guys, this is one of the most disappointing films I have seen this year. Now, before we talk about what doesn't work about this film, let's talk about the good stuff in this film. And there are plenty of good stuff in this film. For one, the guy that plays young Theo, which is played by Fegley, I think, is really solid in this film and really carries a majority of the film because we are with him a majority of the way through the film, and he is really good in this film, especially in the first 30 minutes where we are really seeing how this event changed his life, talking about the bombing, and a lot of his performance is really done in silence through eye movements, and really it's more of a physical role at this point. And as we go along, we see little moments of him just finally laughing, and it really just puts a smile on your face, kind of, because, like, you're just through so much trauma, and then just seeing somebody that's been through so much just finally laugh and enjoy themselves is really heartwarming, and that stuff was really good, and it's a solid performance from this young actor who does an excellent job. There are moments throughout the rest of the film where he has conversations with a bunch of people that are really solid stuff. In fact, there's some of my favorite moments in the film. One of those being between him and Jeffrey Wright's character, Hobie, Hobie is my favorite character in this film by far. Jeffrey Wright does an excellent job in this film. In fact, all the actors do a pretty solid job in this film overall, for there not being like much in the way of character development, especially for a majority of the characters, and a lot of them feeling a bit two-dimensional. The acting is still really solid. One of my favorite moments in the film happens with Theo's character at a very young age talking to Jeffrey Wright's character, and they're basically talking about what art is and talking about antiques, and Hobie, Jeffrey Wright's character, starts just telling him about, the differences between antiques and refurbishing stuff that's, not an antique, and the differences between them, and really just talking about this in a very philosophical way. It can be a bit pretentious, but the way it's said is honestly really good dialogue, and it was really engaging stuff, and a lot of that is brought through by the actors who just do an excellent job portraying a lot of these scenes, but that stuff was really solid. Also, another scene that's really solid is early on with Theo's character meeting a young girl that was in the bombing as well, and seeing kind of their connection with each other through that bombing, and they have this bond with each other that lasts throughout the entire movie, and it just felt so sweet. And those moments like that were so simple, and those were my favorite moments of the film, were just the really simple stuff. There's also moments later on in the film where Theo is reintroduced to his kind of distant and drunkard father, played by Luke Wilson, who does an excellent job in this film. I honestly really liked Luke Wilson, even though he's very much kind of cartoony in this film, and given not much depth. In fact, many of the characters aren't given that much depth in this film, except for a little bit of surface level. But there are several moments with Luke Wilson's character, especially during a scene where he's trying to get money from Theo, that I think is just a really solid scene and one of my favorites of the film. And it's just these little nuggets that are spread throughout the film that really do work and make the film just not a complete chore to get through. I also really love how this film touches on some of its themes, a lot of it being around destiny and fate. Like, we see Theo grow up throughout the film, and he really becomes kind of more like his father than his mother, which I know is something that really is talked about in the book a lot more, but like, you can really see it through this film that he's kind of becoming exactly what his father is throughout the film. He's kind of doing drugs and becoming a extreme alcoholic, and that stuff was really good. I also liked the themes, of course, as I said, of just immortality as well is something that this movie really focuses on, especially when it comes to the Goldfinch painting and how it has existed for all these hundreds of years, and just that it's supposed to be something that is immortal. It's supposed to last. Like, humans will die and fade away, but this painting can survive, and that's something that's really interesting. And the ideas of destiny and fate and how Theo gets to where he is really good stuff. And a lot of the conversations with this kind of thought process can be a little pretentious, a little on the nose, but I think it's just right in terms of like dialogue and in terms of just thematic material. Also, I can't talk about this film without mentioning the music and the cinematography. The music for this film is incredibly good, incredibly haunting, and really fits with the tone that this film is going for, and really helps drive certain scenes, as music should. And the cinematography is, of course, done by Roger Deakins, who I believe to be one of the greatest cinematographers living today, who does just an excellent job. Every shot in this film is planned out so beautifully. The film looks absolutely gorgeous, and one of the best parts of the film that is filmed so beautifully is the bombing itself, which is incredibly haunting, horrifying, and just beautiful to look at, especially when Theo is in the wreckage of the bombing and just walking through just so much ash, and it's beautiful to look at. It's beautiful cinematography. That's probably this film's strongest component, is the cinematography itself. It looks so good. But that's my positives with the film. Now let's get into some of my negatives with this film. And my biggest negative with this film is its pacing. Guys, this film is 2 hours and 20 minutes, which really, to me, isn't that long. I watch plenty of movies that are 2 hours and 20 minutes long, but here's the problem with this film. It feels like 2 hours and 20 minutes. The pacing in this film is incredibly slow, and a lot of that probably has to do with, well, the screenplay itself and also the way in which the film is structured. The film does have, its share of flashbacks, which I've seen this before. Many films do flashbacks, but here it just becomes just such a chore, especially when things are so broken up and become just very choppy. And this film feels very choppy, and a lot of that makes the film really slow to get through. I mean, so we basically have Theo telling us the story of what led up to this moment, and we see him mostly as a child, but then we also see flashbacks of the bombing, and we never see, like, the full bombing take place in real time or anything. We never see it just happen as a scene. It just happens like a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, and it just becomes really messy, and the pacing really suffers from that, and there's not really this hook that is with this film. There's not a hook that really gets you sucked in, and I feel like if the movie really started with Theo telling you his story and then starting with the bombing itself, I think that would have fixed a lot of the trouble with the pacing. And other stuff I don't care with this film is a lot of the characters, even though the actors playing them do a great job, some of them are just one-dimensional as can be, and I don't really care for them that much. I mean, the most I cared for was young Theo and Jeffrey Wright's character, who it's mostly just because of their acting that I really care about them, but there's nothing about these characters, and they just feel so lifeless, and that was really sad. Also, I didn't care much for the character of Boris, played by Finn Wolfhard. I know some people really actually like him in this film. I don't care for him at all. In fact, I just found him really cartoonish and just really oddly cast, and I feel like it just was not a good idea to hire Finn Wolfhard. In fact, I really don't care for Finn Wolfhard that much to begin with. I do like him in Stranger Things and the first It movie, but there's just something about him I just don't care about his acting that much, and I just didn't care about him in this film. Also, I know this is something that happens in the book itself, but especially when it comes to the third act, the film just completely changes genres in such a insane, crazy way that it just doesn't feel natural for what we've shown for the majority of the film, which is really a coming-of-age story. And then the film suddenly becomes a movie about art fraud, and then becomes a thriller. And it just feels a little odd. I hope that maybe if I read the book, like, a lot of that stuff would feel a little bit more cohesive, but here it just felt so out of place. And also, when the credits finally rolled for this film, I just felt so sad, so empty, and just kind of depressed. Like, this was how disappointing this film was, and you know you've seen something that's so disappointing when you feel this way about a film. I didn't feel angry, I didn't think this movie was awful, but, like, it wasn't good either. It was just so bland and mediocre that I just felt so sad while watching the film, or like while the film was ending, and I don't want to feel that way while watching this film. In fact, the ending of this film feels like something that should be extremely uplifting, but it's just not. It's just lifeless, and I just didn't care for anything that really happened throughout the 20-minute runtime, except for those couple of moments littered throughout the film that really do show some promise, but the promise is just destroyed when the pacing is destroyed and the film just becomes really boring and bland. Guys, this was a huge disappointment. This was one of my most anticipated films of this part of the year, and it just really, really failed me. I'm gonna give The Goldfinch a 5 out of 10. Guys, I want to thank you for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you were thinking about watching The Goldfinch, I would say just completely skip it and wait till it's on Amazon Prime, since it's an Amazon Studios film, and it will be on there in a couple of months. But yeah, just don't waste your time with this film and don't pay money to see it, really, unless you have read the book. If you've read the book, I mean, I say go and see it, especially seeing if, it is like a adaptation that is worthy of the book. In fact, that's something I do want to know. If anybody has read the book and has watched the movie, how does this compare to the book? Did it actually tell the story of the book faithfully? Is this a good adaptation? Because I don't really know, because I haven't read the book. But after reading about the book and reading about the author, I am really interested to sit down and actually read it, and I think I will read it at some point. But this movie just... I never want to watch this movie again, guys. This was just... yeah. I hate ending on that kind of a note. It was just, this is one of the only films this year that I have been like, this was so disappointing. I don't think I've given a 5 out of 10 to a movie so far this year in terms of just a regular review. I've given plenty of 5 out of 10s for my catch-up videos, but not for a full review, which is kind of sad. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for you. Sorry for that little talk right there, but I just wanted to get that out of the way. But thank you guys for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next review.